And hi, how you guys doing? Why the hell okay, there I go. That's a lot better here. Today we're going to be talking about the new rules that just dropped on the Federal Register. If you recall last week, I attended a signing ceremony at the DOJ about ATF rules that kind of wins for gun owners. And we have some of those rules right now. We don't have them all, but we have a lot of them. And we're going to go over the ones that we have and explain. But before I do that, let me just say that this is not the end. This is the beginning. So this is a good starting point. There's some stuff that I think that could be improved, and there's some stuff that I think could um, be changed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring up the rules, and I read through a lot of them, and we're not gonna go through all of them because there's a lot. But yeah, not all of them have hit, but the ones that we do have, we're gonna talk about. All right. So this was posted at 8:45 on Eastern time, which is about an hour or 15 minutes ago, and we're going to go through some of them. Okay. So the first rule that hit is the conforming change to approving making applications. This actually involves form ones, and it changes a bunch of things, including markings on firearms. If you formed one, a SBR or something like that, even if it does have markings, you were supposed to engrave it with your trust name or your name and city and state. That is going away. If the firearm has markings, then what what you need to do is just use those markings. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to link each PDF as I talk about it in the chat. So this is actually a good thing here. All right. The second rule that we have is conforming reference. Don't really have to worry about that. Easy check verification of transfers. More have to do with industry stuff, which we don't really have to worry about unless you're an industry person, but I'm concentrating on the American gun owner. Importing plastic explosives. You don't have to file everything in triplicate, which I don't think anyone here probably imports plastic explosives. I could be wrong, but yeah. The reviving the machine gun definition into the response of the Supreme Court definition. What this is, and I'm going to link it here, is because the bump stock thing, right? Because of Cargill, the Cargill case. So when the ATF changed the definition to capture bump stocks, they changed the definition of machine guns. What this does is basically change it back to the original intent of Congress, which is definitely a win. So let me go back here. I'm going to share this tab instead. Adding components under the definition, that's more of export controls, which don't really have to worry about. Adopting certain markers, that's what I was talking about, where you had to mark like a Form 1 SBR, even though it had markings already, serial number, manufacturer, and stuff like that. You don't have to mark that. That means no NFA engravings are going to be necessary, which makes it a lot easier for everyone out there because you can just adopt the markings on there. Clarifying delivery to common and contract carriers while transporting firearms. This is has to do with a lot of the new The the new sorry, I'm still getting over um being sick, but this has to do with how you ship firearms and stuff like that. It is a big deal, but not really. Then we got the clarification of the Brady Act background check requirements. They're clarifying the exceptions. You don't know if your concealed carry permit meets all the requirements of a Brady background check, then technically you can use that as an exception to the Brady list. There's a bunch of states that originally could use that, but the ATF came in and said, no, you cannot use that. And there's been a lot of lawsuits over that. And right now, the ATF is going back saying that these exceptions are in the Brady Act, and we will go ahead and allow those exceptions to exist. Clarifying interstate transportation of firearms under the Gun Control Act. What this does, it clears up. Uh, yep. In my state, CCW allows you to bypass NICS. Yes, that's exactly what this is talking about. But there are certain states that, even though they qualified for it, the ATF said no. Like in certain states, people went through NCIC instead of NICS. And in those states, the ATF under data box said the NCIC doesn't qualify because you're not going through NCIS, even though NCIC pulls from the same databases NICS. NCIC is where the sheriff's department or whoever the chief law enforcement officer runs you through their system. And instead of NICS, it pulls from the same exact system. It's just a different interface. So the ATF tried to say that didn't qualify and they got sued over it. So this clarifies that NCIC is allowed to be used as a Brady exception. All right. So let's go here. We have SOT stuff, which doesn't really deal with that definition of business. That's more of um, firearms business. Firearms retention, record retention periods. This deals with out of business records and everything else like that. The ATF is looking at a retention period of 20 to 30 years. Right now, out of business records are stored forever. So this would pit it for 20 to 30 years. Okay, firearms transaction and straw purchases. This clarifies what a straw purchase is and transactions. So if this clarifies, for example, buying as gifts, stuff like that. It actually makes it narrows the definition of a straw purchase to an actual straw purchase. So people don't get hemmed up for buying like guns for their spouses or whatnot. So that is actually an improvement. Importing training rounds. This makes it easier to import training rounds, which is a good thing. I'll get to that. These are all in the comment period. Um, Regulating engaged in the business as a dealer of firearms. Now, this is interesting because I was under the impression that they were going to remove this totally, but apparently they did not. They did narrow the definition a lot, and I'm just looking at my notes here. The ATF did admit that there's a lot of problems with the current engage in the business rule, and it's not correctly implemented because it doesn't really follow the GCA or the BCSA. Um, the ATF does not propose, however, the repeal of the engaged in the business rule entirely. So they did some changes here. Like they got rid of the presumption of being engaged in the business. Under the current engaged in the business rule, if you start selling firearms, they're going to presume that you are engaged in the business, which flips everything on its head. Instead of being presumed innocent, you're presumed guilty, which flips everything on the head. Um, there, there was also like the collection thing. Under the current engaged in the business rule, what a collection was, there was an extremely narrow definition of a collection. This goes ahead and puts it back in to like a broader definition. So less people are going to be hemmed up. Yeah, so they were trying to get away with the face-to-face deals. This kind of removes that. All right, the next one, removed chief law enforcement officer notification under the National Firearms Act. When you fill out a national firearms form, one of the forms you have to fill out, you have to fill it out in triplicate for some reason, goes to your CLEO, your chief law enforcement officer, whether it's the sheriff, chief of police, or whoever. That notification is now removed. That makes sense because the Clio cannot do anything about your application. They cannot object to it. They were just notified of it, which made absolutely no sense. If they couldn't do anything about it, they couldn't stop you. They couldn't do anything about it. So this removes that, basically saying that you do not have to notify your local Clio. The next rule is removing the factoring criteria for firearms attached with the stabilizing brace. This is a complete repeal of the stabilizing brace rule. Once this goes through, it is gone. Finito. Gone. The whole stabilizing brace rule is out the window. We are back to before the Biden era rule. The next one is selecting biological sex on ATF forms. Now, I've been following like a lot of different opinions on this. So basically, you're only going to be able to choose male or female. People are like, well, what happens if you're like transgender or non-binary or whatnot? Well, this has to do with biological sex. And no matter what you think, you cannot change your biological sex. You're either born a male or you're born a female. You're XX or XY. I know there's some scientific things there that every once in a while you get some weird thing, but that is a very, very small, minute thing. So this actually puts it back to biology. The last two are transferring machine guns between qualified licensees. This makes it easier to transfer machine guns to qualified licensees. And the other one is updating proscribed countries for import regulations. That is another import thing that's only going to affect dealers. Now, I did see some questions here whether these are in the comment period or not, and they are. I also saw something up here. Let me just find it here where they talk about the electronic form ID. Um, it, No thanks says this is not good news. It gives ATF a pathway for digital IDs. All right. So let's go ahead and address that really quick because right now there's no rule about digital IDs, but there is a variance on digital ID. And that variance, and we Rich added to the stage and he got there you go. That variance
Copy.
that variance is already in effect. What the digital ID stuff does is walk back that variance a little bit, because right now, if you use the digital IDs through the variance, the ATF has access to those digital IDs. They have 24-hour access into your system. The rule for digital IDs, and I talked to Rob Leiter about this, they will not have access to those IDs. What the digital IDs will allow you to do is to scan IDs to be transferred through, like, through the internet. So, basically, you can scan your ID, fill out a 4473 on the internet, and get the firearm shipped to your door. The ATF is not going to have access into those IDs. With the variance right now, the ATF does have access into those files, and you can't get it shipped to your door. So, you're right, there is no rule about digital IDs, but there is a variance that is granted to all FFLs. I hope that makes sense.
Clear as mud.
So, that is what we have right now. These are all open for comment periods. Okay, another one. 20 years, isn't that whining back to the regulations in a pre-Biden era? We're talking about out of business records. Out of business records right now are kept forever. This will put a cap on those out of business records to 20 years that will match up with the FFLs.
So, like, if your FFL was in business for 19 years and he goes out of business, the ATF keeps those records forever right now.
Yeah, now those records have a 20-year shelf life, or a 30-year, whatever they decide on. So that is an improvement. And like I said, this is not a finish line. This is a beginning point. There's a lot that we still need to see, and I think by doing comments, we can improve these rules even better. Rich, why are you in the thing twice?
Because it's twice as nice.
All right. So we can do even better. I'm going to kick the other one. Never mind. We can do even better by the comment period. But this is the time when we as gun owners can put our input into some of these regulations and improve them. The engaged in the business rule, I think, need to be wholesale repealed. I think it should go away. I'm disappointed that it's not, but we can push them to do that.
Well, multiple organizations, including GOA, have a lawsuit against the engaged in the business rule.
We have an injunction.
Injunction? Okay.
A lot of people have injunctions against it. So we can push that. And if not, we'll keep on pushing through the courts. And so really, the courts is the way that, you know.
So it's not as good as the first read was.
No, it's still really good, but it's a starting point. Like what I said back then, I said this is a starting point. I'm gonna get you on a call with someone.
Oh, you mean
Walter out there?
Hold on, yeah, free the SHTF 50.
Yeah, this is a starting point. This is not a finish line. We need to use our comment period to try to improve these to a better position. This is a win, and right now, I can tell you for a fact that the antis are losing their effing mind on these.
Do we have like Giffords and Brady with all sorts of crazy people statements?
Oh yeah, like everyone. I am like blocked from most of them. So
Well, that's
like a long time ago, I think they must have shared something. I don't know.
you're the head of a militia. That's why they blocked you.
Yeah, that I don't think that they think I'm that anymore. That was a few years ago. That was like 7 years ago. That was before I even do the YouTube stuff, which is crazy, but whatever. But yeah, this is good. We just have to keep on pushing. This is the beginning, not the end. So, yeah, that's basically it. All right. So, interesting. Guns.com, guns. Whatever. If you're a VA resident, you get free shipping and 10% off. So there you go. All right. So that's basically it. Just wanted to let you know that the comment period is open. For everyone. One of the interesting things that I find, though, before we get out of here, is in the Clio notification, the ATF basically says, that they've been doing it for 10 years and there's not been one crime solved by a Clio notification.
Now, Clio notification is when your local police department gets notified that you purchased a firearm.
Yeah, and they did it like a poll over all the Clios around the country, and the majority of them, when they ask what do you do with them, they're like, we just we disregard them.
So, what was the original intent of the Clio notification?
To make it well, originally the Clio could object.
Okay.
So originally they could object. Then under Obama, then it turned from a permission from Clio
to
a notification to Clio.
All right. Leo is law enforcement officer. C is
chief law enforcement officer.
Chief law. Okay.
But yeah, they said the majority of Clios around the country just throw them away. So they don't even look at them. They just shred them.
Wow.
So it was basically just to make it an extra step. One of the things I like is if you do like a Form 1 on a SBR or an SBS, then you don't have to have NFA engravings anymore if it already has a serial number of manufacturer, which, because the place I go, Sterling Arsenal in Sterling, which is freaking who I recommend to do anything that you need, any custom work to your guns. They never charged me. They just do it for me. But I got a really good relationship with them. But not everyone has that.
Oh, for sure.
And people were being charged $70 to $100. A lot of people who didn't have anyone locally said they would have to ship their guns out to get engraved and whatnot. So this takes care of that. You don't have to worry about that.
My dog's barking at the door.
Yeah. So we don't have to worry about that. All right, I guess that's it.
Ready, Crumpy?
I wanted to eat tacos tonight because it's Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo. How many times?
You're gonna have seafood tacos?
No, I'm not gonna have anything. I'm still fucked up.
Oh man, no good, no good.
You guys don't know what happened over the weekend.
The seafood got to him.
I got some food and there was accidentally shellfish in my food. And having a shellfish allergy, that's not a freaking good thing. So, yeah, it was not fun. It has not been fun. I'm still whatever. That's why I'm kind of out of it a little bit.
Okay, so here's one of the things we talked about this, I think, yesterday. The unfortunate thing is ATF rules and executive orders. These two things can go away with a new Democrat administration.
It can.
So that's why a win in the court is much better than a rule or an executive order.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see exactly what happens here. And also, I'm just going to show a headline here. I'm not going to read it. And you don't read it either, Rich.
Okay.
I don't want to be demonetized here. Just a little bit of levity before we get out of here.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
If only we had a constitutional amendment. Exactly. All right, guys, so that's it. We're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. My name is John Crump. I'm an investigative journalist that concentrates on 2A issues. And this is Flying Rich, who just left, and he flies planes. So with that, we're out of here. Bye-bye.